Hey there, it's Don Krakito again with another edition of Hypermodality, and this is literally my first invasion as a pyro, ever. So forgive me my sloppiness, as this is the first time I've ever actually played a pyromancer. Let's start out with how I get to the buffed stage. In this case I don't bother with Sacred Oath, but you have to cast Tears of Denial after the weapon art, because unlike Sacred Oath, you lose tears if you use it afterwards. Not sure why it works that way, it just does. Now this guy's level 70, and I found with this character you don't need to really lay tears on more than once per invasion, so I'd rather keep extra spells to cast. Here we have an excellent example of something I am often guilty of. The premature gesture. Could have healed. Now you're not quite powerful enough to one-shot it up close like you are with the Miracle Caster, but you do have quite a few one-shots regardless. Like this one. I was invading as a mound maker at the time, which unfortunately resulted in a lot of duty fulfilled just from killing the phantoms. Now, Fire Surge does decent damage, but still isn't going to level anybody. Black Serpent does right around 400, but unfortunately doesn't affect it by your boosting rings. Vestiges is definitely going to be the vast majority of your damage. Possibly a little bit of Great Chaos Fireball here and there. And you've always got the Marion to finish people off with, if both of those fail. Always remember, after the host is gone, nobody is a friend. But sometimes that's the case before the host is gone, like with this guy. I never did understand in a game where it's stacked so much against the invader why you turn on your fellow invaders, but you get a nice point down for it. Now, defenses vary greatly when it comes to fire. You can do anywhere from 600 to 1100 damage, maybe 1200 with a counter. With Great Chaos Fire Orb, you usually do about a little bit less, but if you hit him with the chip damage, it's more. I was kind of hoping that Firestorm would be a little more awesome than I found out it was. It's extremely difficult to get off in an invasion, and you're getting chased by everybody, and then if you do manage to cast it, you don't actually take anybody out. Rather disappointing, and I didn't bother slotting it from there. This serves as an excellent illustration of something I've noticed a lot in this game. Blues never seem to have a lot of HP. Here's a battle against a fellow pyromancer who's got his stats a little more sensibly laid out. It was quite difficult to take him on. Not only that, I'd imagine he's probably intimately familiar with the timing on all these spells, so that doesn't help either. To boot, it kind of looks like he has the blood ring on, but I'm not sure. Could just be lag. This was actually probably the most elaborate and drawn-out fight I had the entire time I was doing this. This guy was far from an easy kill. I must say, though, if he'd had Fire Surge slotted, I probably would have been doomed already. I don't believe he does. I am not exactly what you'd call durable. But this time, I narrowly win. If you encounter this build and try to block with a shield, make sure your shield has really high fire defense, or it hurts bad. As an invader, one thing to always remember is you always have your Marion. I swap it so fast in the menu that I inadvertently apply the Bloodlust buff to it a lot. But even without it, you can do some pretty hefty damage with it. And of course, if they actually catch your fireball, they'll be eating about 900 HP in damage. Here I demonstrate once again that I can't recognize an invader wearing an untrue dark ring. I'm sure that's won me plenty of friends. Coming up is a great example of something I learned in the last video. Spells actually have a pretty respectable amount of hit stun. Case in point, he's rooted in place while I take him out. The fireballs have amazing tracking, and their explosive radius is pretty effective. Lots of people get hit where they would not have had I thrown a lightning bolt. That explosion is hard to get away from. It also does effective chip damage, around 250 or so. I invaded as a mound maker trying to get warmth, but I still took out plenty of hosts in the process. At the same time, it was kind of fun to just try to go after phantoms and see what I could do. Didn't always work though. Now this guy's scary on his own, but he's even more terrifying with friends. Like in a hyper gank scenario. Here we've got ourselves a pure hyper gank, 3 incredibly squishy characters trying to stay alive. You either win gloriously, or die pathetically. Sometimes both. And there's going to be at least some times when you absolutely cannot save the host. And he gets wrecked. Simultaneously, you can tear up quite a few people very fast. You just have to make sure not to get hit. Way easier with help, though. Sometimes it feels unfair, but you always have to remind yourself, all they have to do is hit you twice. At the same time, you do get plenty of kills. I scored quite a few on this little adventure. In this case, I actually kept Tears of Denial on because, well, you're going to have to put it on quite a few times. I'd reapply it as many as 5 or 6 times without dying. One shots abound, but 2-hit combos are also nice. That hit stun can really wreck people if you hit them. At the same time, you're just as vulnerable to ladders as everybody else. Stay away from ladders. Ladders are bad, especially when you have 10 endurance. I've got 2 melee hyper mode builds complementing mine today for this hyper gank. One is a buff build with Dark Moon Blade and double swords. Very nasty. A single L1 can drop them sometimes. The other one is the classic dual Marions. Always a favorite because of those beautiful multipliers. Now, just because you're hyper ganking doesn't mean you always need help. You are perfectly capable of wrecking on your own. At the same time, you do become a daunting force multiplier. All 3 of you together, pretty hard to withstand. At the same time, one lucky hit and you're all dead. It's one-shots all around. Eventually, you're going to encounter somebody who wises up to your little game and does something that you really can't deal with directly, like this. This guy knows what he's doing. We pretty much can't retaliate to that. At the same time, you'll get plenty of kills. We'll end with some quality bait. Drop attacks are always fun. They're especially fun when you can do upwards of 200 more damage than he just did, or more. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.